Hey guys, it's Eric here. I am back with another video, and this is certainly a very special video. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on my area when it comes to academia, but also hopefully soon my profession. It's the law, and I'm going to be speaking with the head of graduate recruitment at Arthur Cox, Eimear Power. So firstly, I want to thank you so much, Eimear, for joining me today for the video.
No problem. Thanks very much for having us, Eric.
Recently, I had the pleasure of completing an internship at Arthur Cox, which is a law firm here in Ireland. And at the internship, of course, it was a fantastic experience. I got to do many different things. And for me, the biggest deal was actually getting there. So actually landing an internship, which was something that many law students try year on year to achieve. So this video is going to focus on how best you can go about applying for internships. Before I got the internship, I had the perception that it was, out of touch, out of reach, something that I couldn't achieve. And then once you actually get it, I think it really changes how you see yourself and your capacity. So here, I want to help all of you achieve that change in perception without actually landing it. So if you haven't landed one, so that one day you can hopefully do it if that's what you seek. So Eimear, I'd love to put some questions to you about how best people can go about applying. And I wonder, do you have any words to share initially just about the internship program at Arthur Cox, how it works, and what it's been like overseeing it for the past couple of years?
Yeah, so the internship is normally a 4-week kind of fully immersive program. So I suppose the idea is that the interns are put into a practice group in the firm for the 4 weeks so that they become a member of that team and they get to kind of take on actual real client work while also kind of seeing other parts of the firm through different networking and information sessions that we put on. So it's normally 4 weeks. One thing that we kind of do to help people is we provide accommodation free of charge, which you will know about that, Eric. So that's basically for anyone from outside Dublin. Obviously, particularly at the moment, the situation with rental accommodation is quite stark. So we put on the accommodation for people so that it's accessible to everybody, basically, so that nobody is at a financial disadvantage to come up to Dublin and do the internship. So this year it was returned to an in-person internship. Last year we ran it virtually. 2020 we had to cancel due to COVID. So it was really nice to have people back in the office this time round. And Eric, you were part of the biggest intake that we've ever had in the firm. So there were 33 interns with us in August, finished up last Friday. Was a bit apprehensive about such a large group, but actually the group was just lovely. Everyone got on really well. Everyone was really engaged and interested, and I have to say I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. I guess the first question, kind of to segue from what you just said, Eimear, and to speak to what I pointed to in terms of the concept of self-belief, is the fact that I've noticed amongst many people I spoke to, and I've experienced this myself, a lack of self-belief when it comes to things like internships at the big corporate law firms. So in terms of someone who might lack self-belief, who might be capable but not believe they have the capacity to actually get involved with an internship, why would you, if you had to kind of make the case for applying, what would you say to them? Why should they put themselves forward?
So you've literally nothing to lose, particularly with our application process. It's quite easy. It's not a long, tedious application form. So it's something you have probably a CV put together. You fill in the application form and submit a cover letter. So the cover letter, some people are a bit put off by that because there's very little guidance really along what you should put into it. But it's really kind of information that's supplementary to your CV. So why you're pursuing a career in law, why you're interested in Arthur Cox, and why we should consider you. So it's kind of, your carte blanche to just tell us a bit more about yourself so we can get to know you as a person. And then we have the Watson Glaser test, which again can be off-putting for some people, but the reason that is there is to allow people to kind of demonstrate those critical reasoning skills, because they're not particularly tested at leaving cert or college level. So it's to try and, I suppose, flatten the playing field, and so that we're hiring not just the highest academic achievers, but the most suitable people for the firm or for this particular career path. So the first thing is you've nothing to lose. It's not going to take a huge amount of your time. You may as well apply if you are interested, because, and I think you'll agree with this, Eric, but when you talk to people who are interns in Arthur Cox or are trainees in Arthur Cox, they'll often say, oh, I didn't think I'd get in. people have this preconceived idea of what it is that we're looking for, and in many cases they're incorrect. So a question that I get asked all the time is, but I don't have any legal experience, so should I apply? Nobody applying has any legal experience. Okay, so be it for an internship or a traineeship, it is highly unlikely that anybody will have legal work experience or that anybody will have office experience. Most people are in college, they might have worked part-time during their college course, and that's all as relevant as having worked in a law firm, because no one will have worked in a law firm at that point in their career. So you will find a lot of people who are in the firm being like, God, I didn't think I'd get in. I thought they were looking for, somebody with 625 points in Leaving Cert and this, that, and the other. So I suppose you've nothing to lose. What we're looking for, you don't even have to be studying law to apply. We're looking for people who are kind of driven, who want to pursue this career path, who like working as part of a team, who like solving problems, that type of thing. So, it's kind of like the lotto. If you're not in, you can't win, So I would say put the self-belief to one side, or the lack of self-belief to one side, and just go for it. You never know.
Yeah, those are, I think, very influential words, Eimear. I hope people listening to it can take from that. So you're looking for people who are driven. You're looking for critical thinking skills. You don't have to be a 625 first-year college student who has ample experience at a law firm. It's all about being in experiences that actually see you demonstrating those skills.
Exactly, and that's why we ask about your work experience on the CV, and people think it's to check whether you've done legal work experience or whether you've ever worked in an office before, and it's not. It's to get the kind of whole picture of you as a person. So for example, you're studying in college, you're maintaining good grades, but what are you juggling? What are you managing while maintaining those grades? Do you have a part-time job? Are you working every weekend? Are you working evenings? Are you involved in clubs and societies or sports or extracurriculars? So that's the reason we ask for all this information. It's not to say, oh, well, Eric has never worked in a law firm, we won't look at him.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And I think the next thing that follows from that as a corollary, Eimear, is how best you can actually communicate the things that you're looking for in your application, because I'm sure many people have necessary experiences that would make them stand out, and maybe because of self-perception and not seeing yourself as an asset. And when it comes to applying, you do so with modesty. I certainly think that I've suffered from this many a time. So if there's any advice that you'd give to people when it comes to applying, how do you think it's best to go about putting down on everything that you've experienced, everything that you feel can actually sell yourself as someone who could contribute immensely to the law firm that you're applying for?
I think you mentioned there, it's selling yourself, and it's uncomfortable and nobody likes doing it and people feel boastful, and it's just not in our makeup. But if you don't do it, somebody else will, basically. So kind of put the humility to the side and just think about, like, what have I done? What have I got to bring to this? And again, we're not benchmarking you off somebody who's done 12 internships or, who's, like I said, won scholarships or anything like that. So you put down everything that you have to offer. That includes any hobbies and interests, and again, the reason we're asking for it is to get a better picture of you. We want rounded people who like working in teams, people who get involved and stuff. So again, people think, God, I like walking my dog and reading. I can't put that down. That's not, impressive enough. We're not asking, we don't want necessarily people saying that they're the head of the debating team and that they are involved in moot court, or that they, it doesn't have to be legal. We'd rather see somebody playing an active role in, the fashion society than playing a kind of, I'll just get membership for the law society because it'll look good on the CV. Like I said as well, we have a lot of trainees who haven't studied law in any capacity before they come to us. So we're not looking for a fully formed lawyer. We're looking for somebody who has potential and drive, and, like I said, demonstrates those type of skills. So if you're thinking about, when you're putting your CV and cover letter together, you're thinking about what we're looking for. So somebody who likes solving problems, somebody who likes working in a team, somebody who's interested and driven in their life and academics and outside of academics. So you want to try and display that. So obviously the academics section is fairly factual. It's just, this is what I'm studying, this is where I'm studying, this is my grade so far. Same with Leaving Cert. Then work experience, like I said, what's important to include for any work experience, so everything is relevant, but if you include the frequency that you're working. So, for example, if it's two people, if it's myself and yourself, Eric, and we're both studying Galway, both on decent grades, similar leaving certs, but you're working in Spar and you've put down that you're working like, whatever many, 20 hours a week, whatever it is. And I've put down that I don't work, but like maybe I babysit once a month. So I'm juggling a lot less than you are, kind of on a whole. So that's just showing that you're able to prioritize your time, you're able to manage people's expectations, you're able to work in a team, inspire wherever you're working, and that you can kind of manage conflicting priorities. So just kind of don't be setting yourself up against an unbelievably high bar. It's just tell us about you, what you're doing, what you enjoy, how often you're doing it, and just put all that sort of stuff in the CV and the cover letter. And the best cover letters that I've read tend to be the most genuine ones. So it could be somebody saying, like, I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5 because my parents said I was always arguing with people, or it could be, I studied arts in college, didn't know what I wanted to do until I graduated, realized I have X, Y, and Z strengths, and thought, went to see a career counselor and ended up coming to this path. So it's the genuine ones that kind of stick out. So just be yourself. We're not looking for, I heard a phrase, one of the partners in Arthur Cox used it during one of the interviews, we're not looking for solicitrons, we're looking for real people who are interested, who are dynamic, and who just have an interest in this type of work.
I feel obliged to say, Eimear, that when I was chatting to you, I think it was on week 1, you actually emphasized that despite the fact that we look for all the things that you just stated, we also look to see if you're normal, if you are genuine, if you're someone who we can get on with. And I think that kind of clashes with the stereotype a lot of law students might have. I've never watched Suits, but a lot of my friends have, and my law friends, and they talk about how cutthroat they think the corporate law environment will be based upon Suits. And from my experience at Arthur Cox with the internship, this being my very first internship, it was just the opposite, total opposite. And it looks like that's what you look for, people who are genuine, people who you can get along with, not this cutthroat type of figure who's kind of a sociopathic.
There's definitely kind of a popular culture view of what corporate law is like, and certainly in my experience in Arthur Cox, it's not like that. I had that preconceived idea coming in. So I don't want to work in a corporate law firm. They'll all be like that, very going around, very competitive and cutthroat and stuff, but it's not. And I think, there's no point in sugarcoating it. A career in corporate law is challenging, and there can be long hours, it can be pressurized. So really, when we're recruiting for interns who we hope will become trainees, who we hope will become associates and partners down the line, we're recruiting for people that you want to be your colleagues, you want to be in the trenches with on a big massive deal or transaction, working against a tight deadline. This is going to be a big thing in your career. Do I want Eric by my side helping me, or do I want somebody who's very good on paper at doing whatever it is, but actually won't communicate or won't be able to work as part of a team, or won't kind of pitch in to the kind of the bigger goal.
And to your point there about the reality of working in corporate law, how would you describe a typical day? So you arrive at the office. I got a sense of this, of course, with the internship, but how would you describe it from your experience for lawyers, but also for you also?
So I suppose you could probably speak more to the lawyer experience, Eric, having been in for 3 weeks and being a very valued member of the litigation team and other teams in the firm. For me, so business services, that's basically all of the people in Arthur Cox who are not lawyers. So that includes HR, trainee department, marketing, finance, business development, IT, etc. So for me, I suppose a typical day is quite different now than it was pre-COVID. So the firm always had an agile working policy, which kind of worked out well then when it was enforced on the whole world. So everyone had, work from home equipment, and I used to work from home a day a week anyway. So now I go into the office depending on what I have on that week, between 2 days. For example, during the internship, I was in 4 or 5 days a week, but that's only at particular times of year. So what I find about it, it's a very collaborative environment. So, I share an office with the trainee program manager, Orla, and even when I'm not in the office or she's not in the office, we spend a lot of time talking and problem solving. between each other and be like, here, this is after coming up now. What do you think about this? Or I was going to go with this approach. What do you think about that? And that's kind of, you see that across a lot of different practice areas and different even business services areas in the firm. It's very collaborative. It's a very team based environment, and not just for the lawyers, and you'll have seen this yourself, Eric, it's not just you're in litigation, you work with the people on your small litigation team within the bigger litigation team. There's a lot of cross-departmental work. There's a lot of, kind of committees and stuff in the firm as well, outside of the work, where you will be liaising with people from different areas, different levels of seniority across the firm. So it's very collaborative, and it's very, despite obviously a law firm by its nature is hierarchical in terms of this associates, senior associates, partners, etc. It's very flat in Arthur Cox in terms of, you wouldn't feel that you couldn't go up to a partner's office and walk in and, ask them a question the same as you would for a trainee, an associate, the managing partner himself. Like it's very flat in that kind of way. There's no airs and graces, I'll say.
That's something that I certainly notice myself from my experience. But thanks so much for outlaying your experience too in business services. And I guess, Eimear, the last question that I have is just whether you have any lasting piece of advice for any students who are thinking, I know we touched on why you should put yourself forward, what the firm is looking for, how you can communicate it, and why you need to communicate your best hand and not actually put it behind your back out of shyness and modesty. But any lasting piece of advice for students who are thinking of putting themselves forward for an internship application for Arthur Cox, but also for a career in corporate law in the future?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of applying to Arthur Cox, the biggest piece of advice I can give people is to practice the Watson-Glaser test, okay? So you will have done it yourself, Eric. It is a very doable test. It's 40 questions and you have 30 minutes to do the test. But it is quite different from any other test you may have done in your life to date. So it's really, really worthwhile to do some practice tests just to familiarize yourself with the type of questions, how long it takes you to read them, the structure of the test and that type of thing. And so that's really important, but also to take your time and take as much of that 30 minutes. So it doesn't necessarily take 30 minutes. You can get through it. I think I did it in 12 minutes. Now, I wasn't doing it to get a job. I was doing it to kind of test the system was working. So it can be done in a much shorter time, but the result you get is going to be very much dependent on how much you put into it. So even the smartest people in the world, if you go through this test quickly, you're not going to do well on it, because the whole point of it is that you're reading a piece of text and then you're trying to decide, like, is it a fact or is it an assumption? And this is, this test is in place and used by a lot of the big firms in London as well. So it's set at a high level. So it's not that the assumptions and the facts are going to look quite similar until you read them and consider them. So it's not a speed test. It's not like, one of these tests where you just go through get as many as you can done. Nobody's ever run out of time on the Watson-Glaser test since we've been using it. So really take the time and make sure that you're happy with your answers. So that would be a huge piece of advice, because it was never intended to be a filtering tool. But as the quantity and quality of applications increases, it could be a case that, say, we're down to one final interview spot, and it's myself and yourself, Eric, and there's one spot left. And like that, we both have very similar CVs, but you've done better on the Watson-Glaser test. When there's nothing else to separate it, it is going to come down to that. So it really do yourself a favour and make sure that you practice the test and spend the full amount of time. With your CV, just make sure you have all of the relevant information in it. And for the cover letter, I would always say to people, when you draft the cover letter, we want to know a bit about you. So why us? Why Arthur Cox? Why corporate law? Why an internship? Tell us a bit about you that we wouldn't have got from the CV. Don't repeat what's in the CV on the cover letter, because they will always be considered together. No one's going to read the cover letter without having the CV into their hand. So also for the cover letter, get somebody to read it, check for spelling and grammatical errors. You'd be really surprised by how often people spell the word bachelor wrong, or people address a cover letter to the wrong law firm. So make sure you don't trip yourself up on any silly mistakes like that. But then ask the person who's reading the cover letter, does this sound like I wrote it, or does this sound like the very talented people in Arthur Cox marketing department wrote it? Because if it's the latter, you need to change it, because we want to find out more about you. We don't want to find out about ourselves and our practice groups and the number of employees we have, because we already know that. We want to find out about you and what it is about us as a firm that made you want to apply to us. Because again, that can kind of that demonstrates somebody's drive. Like, are they just applying for an internship because they want, to have a job for the summer, or are they applying for it because they're interested in this career path, because there's something about Arthur Cox that they thought, you know what, that sounds like somewhere that I might like to work, or that I might fit in. So make sure it sounds like it was written by a real person. And then if you get to the interview stage, be yourself is really, really important. So we've made as many kind of changes or improvements to our interview process to make it as fair and as equal. So the group interview in the past, it used to be kind of a legal case study. Then we moved to more of a business focused kind of current affairs type of case study, because like that, we want to attract people who are not studying law as well as people who are studying law. And then this year we kind of, with the D&I lens on, thinking, okay, this is a written case study. So what if English is not their first language, or what if they have neurodivergent issues? It's going to take them longer to read it, therefore they're going to have less time to consider it. So we need to make that fairer, and we brought in a visual case study, so basically an infographic about a topic that gives the person looking at it a lot of scope in terms of what they take from it, or what they want to discuss out of it. So we've made as many changes as possible, like that, the Watson Glaser, so we're not just considering academics. And in the individual interview, it is all about the person. So I would kind of say trust the process, that nobody's going to ask you what, your favorite contract clause is, or what your favorite amendment to the Constitution is. They just want to get to know you as a person. So just be yourself at interview. And if you don't get as far as interview, one piece of advice I would say is ask for feedback. I know most organizations don't give feedback, but I will give feedback to anybody who asks for it. And if you don't get feedback, you're not going to know where you need to improve on. And many times it could be something very simple, like, actually, Eric, your CV is fantastic, your cover letter is great, but you didn't do very well in the Watson Glaser test, and I looked at your report and you only took 15 minutes. So therefore, I keep the CV as it is, cover letter as it is, practice the Watson Glaser. But had you not asked me for that, or had the person not asked me for that, they wouldn't know that. So they might go back and just start the CV from scratch, and then that could be, not as good as the previous one, etc. Or it could be a case that in the group interview they didn't speak enough, or they spoke too much or something. So if, in many cases we see people reapplying year on year. So you're one of the lucky ones, obviously, Eric. You applied and got through first time around, but many people don't. And we've seen people apply 3 and 4 times. But if you're applying 3 and 4 times and not asking for feedback, the chances of there being any difference in the outcome is probably slimmer. Whereas if you are actually asking for feedback and taking it on board and reapplying, then that's when you see a positive result then coming out of it. And again, that in itself shows resilience and drive, that you've, applied, not got through, taken the initiative to get the feedback, and then reapplied.
Yeah, well, I have to thank you so much, Eimear, for the wealth of information that you provided to me. Myself, there's certainly so much that I've learned from chatting with you, and I'm sure everyone who's been watching the video has learned lots too. I just have to say, to conclude, that if anyone is watching this video and is studying law or not studying law and is thinking of a career in corporate law or applying for the internship for Arthur Cox, as someone who just finished an internship, I would advise you all to apply and take the tips that Eimear has provided on board and apply them in your internship application. Just appreciate the fact that it's a journey. As Eimear acknowledged, you might not get it the first time, but you have to go out there and try and seek insight as to why you didn't get it and how you can do better the next time, because things can always go your way, even if they don't initially. So thank you so much for joining us in this video today and listening to the video. I have to thank you also, Eimear, for sparing me your time in your very busy schedule to chat to me about internship applications. I hope you enjoyed the video once more. If you did, please like. If you have any thoughts, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.